Alright, so like and subscribe if you want to, and join the Discord through the link in the description. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and get into it with some waiver wire must roster players. These are guys who I believe absolutely must belong on some rosters at this point in the season. This first page is guys that should belong on like 8 to 10 team leagues and above, and then we'll go ahead and get into some deeper league players after that. But we'll go ahead and get started with Cole Anthony. He's someone who's rostered in 57% of leagues, but at this point I think he should be rostered in all formats up to like 70% at the very least. Jalen Suggs is set to miss an extended period of time. We still don't know when Fultz is going to be back. And so far he's put up 39 fantasy points, 38 fantasy points. At the time I'm recording this, he already has 17 in 9 minutes against New York. So definitely go ahead and grab Cole Anthony before it's too late if he's still on your waiver wire. But yeah, he'll probably be rostered in a lot of your guys' leagues. I just felt like it was a no-brainer, but I should still throw him on. Anyways, moving on to the next player on my list is going to be Kelly Olynyk. He's rostered in about 19% of leagues, but if we're looking at the Utah Jazz, they have been a big surprise to start the season. But Kelly Olynyk's played 35 minutes and 37 minutes the last two games, respectively. Put up 20 points in both of them. 49 fantasy points, 38 fantasy points. Definitely worth taking a flyer on if you have a streaming spot. I think he should absolutely be rostered at this current moment in time. Remains to be seen if it's a long term or not, if he can sustain this kind of production. But I think for the time being, you should definitely have Kelly Olynyk on a roster in your league. And then moving on, this is a guy who's more short term. This is going to be Dennis Smith Jr. from the Charlotte Hornets. We already all know LaMelo's out. Terry Rozier could miss an extended period of time, but even with Rozier playing, Dennis Smith Jr. still put up some pretty solid fantasy numbers. He's averaging around 13 and 5 with 2.7 steals. I don't think the steal numbers are sustainable, but if you can pick him up now while he's on a hot streak, he's averaging around 40 fantasy points. So definitely someone that I would consider an absolute must roster, especially for this week. I mean, who knows when Melo gets back? He'll probably be a drop, but for the time being, absolutely should be rostered. He's only rostered in about 15% of leagues right now, so definitely go ahead and grab him. And I should mention these guys are listed in the order that I would consider grabbing them. So like I said, I'd grab Cole Anthony first, then Kelly, and then Dennis Smith Jr., etc. So moving on, Jared Vanderbilt, another Utah Jazz player. Definitely having some sneaky production, mostly due to his contributions in the stocks. I mean, you're giving 4 steals the last 2 games. Again, not sustainable production, but he's just kind of a grit and grind player running around doing it all on the floor. Definitely capable of having some high rebounding games, as you can clearly see from his last few games. He had a 14 rebound game, a 12 rebound game. Last game, 15 points, 4 steals. I think it's worth taking a flyer on. He's only rostered in about 17% of leagues right now, and that's seen a significant increase. He's up 8%. So if he's, for some reason, still on your waiver wire in your league, and you're in like a 12-team league, I think he should definitely be on a roster at this point in the season. Like I said, all of these guys, I don't know if they're necessarily long-term options, but for the short term, I think they should be on a team. And then lastly on this list, it's going to be Grant Williams. This is just due to him having some pretty hot shooting as of late, averaging around 31 fantasy points on the season right now. Will he maintain this kind of production? I doubt it, but just for the time being, I think you might as well go ahead and pick him up. He's only rostered in about 10% of leagues right now, so I think, he's not going to give you much outside of the 3-point shooting, a few rebounds here and there. He's got 2 blocks the last 2 games, but definitely not what he's known for, so I wouldn't expect too much out of that. But for the time being, if he can give you 30 fantasy points per game, that's definitely not someone that should be on the waiver wire. So that's going to do it for the guys that are added in more shallow leagues. Now we'll go ahead and get into my deeper league waiver wire ads for the week. Alright, so am I rushing? Definitely, but all of my videos recently have been like an hour long, so I'm just trying to give you guys a quick one. Nothing too serious here. I put some time into looking at who I would recommend, but like I said, I'm just going to speed through it, give you guys some waiver wire options for this week. I'm definitely going to have a lot more videos coming out this weekend, so stay tuned for that. But we'll go ahead and get into it with Tari Eason. He's someone who I mentioned as a sleeper at the start of the year, and I stand by that. I mentioned it at the time. There are a few roadblocks he has to get through. I mean, there's the Steven Silas playing, Eric Gordon and Kenyon Martin Jr. over him right now. I think we are going to have to put up with that. That'll for a little bit of time, but I think long-term I would much rather have Tari Eason on my roster than any of those guys for fantasy perspective and in real life. But anyways, I think it's only a matter of time before he works his way into the starting lineup. He's just a better overall player than those two. Well, I mean, I don't know if he's better than Eric Gordon, but for the young rebuilding team, he definitely should be getting minutes, and Kenyon Martin Jr. cannot guard a pylon, so it's only a matter of time before they sort of work Tari Eason into the lineup. Even as he currently stands, he's getting about 20 minutes per game. Had a very solid fantasy night last night, had 3 blocks. Or 2 nights ago, excuse me. So I think he definitely is worth keeping on your roster for now. He is a rookie. He still has time to prove himself and get better. I think it's still worth taking a flyer on him in deeper leagues. His roster percentage has gone down by 2% recently. I don't really know why people are dropping him. This is kind of what was expected coming out of the gates. In a 10 team, he's probably not worth rostering at the current moment in time. But if you're in a 12 to 14, absolutely, I think he belongs on a roster for right now. So he's going to do it for the first player on my deeper leagues pickups. Moving on, next up, this is a guy who is pretty short term, even though he has looked very solid so far in the season. We just got news that Brandon Ingram has been placed in concussion protocols. Zion Williamson might be out for a game or two with that ass injury or whatever it was that he fell and hurt. So I would go ahead and pick up Trey Murphy III. I think he's definitely someone that should belong on a roster. He's looked very solid to start the season, shooting the ball from three. I think he's going to see an increase in his scoring numbers, especially if those two go out. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a 40 fantasy point night. I think he's absolutely someone that you should be picking up in a 12-plus team league. Definitely belongs on a waiver wire for this week when we don't know how much time Brandon Ingram and Zion are going to be missing. So definitely go ahead and roster him if you have not already. And then moving on, these next three guys are for like the very deep leagues. Next up is Nick Richards. He's only rostered in about 4% of leagues right now. At the start of the season, I projected Mark Williams to sort of maybe work his way into the starting spot over Plumlee, because Plumlee's just some ass. But it looks like Nick Richards has really stepped up this first few games. Had a 20-11 game on yesterday, and then he had a 21, or then he had a 19-10 game on the 19th. So, I mean, he could work his way into some even heavier rotational minutes for Charlotte. As of now, I think with this kind of production, I absolutely go pick him up, especially in a deeper league. You're just looking for any source of value you can get. And if Nick Richards is going to put up numbers like this, I think it is worth taking a flyer on him. And then moving on, next up, we have Usman Garuba. I probably butchered that name. From the Houston Rockets. He is set to be playing tonight. He is not starting. They are going and starting a small ball lineup at the time I'm recording this against the Jazz. But their defense is just going to be absolutely horrible, so I'm expecting that to not maintain itself for a prolonged duration of time. And while Şengün's out with an illness and Fernando's set to miss a bit of time, I think it is worth taking a flyer on Garuba. I think he is going to see some pretty significant minutes in these next upcoming games, and that's definitely something that I'm going to consider rostering. He's only rostered in less than 1% of leagues right now, so if you're in like a 14-plus team league, I think it is worth taking a flyer on him if you have a waiver wire spot, or if you have like a streaming spot, so consider looking at him. And then lastly, this one is for like the absolute, you're in the trenches kind of leagues, like the 20-team leagues and shit. It's going to be Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. He's someone that I picked up in my 20-team league with my very last pick. I was just kind of looking at this Thunder's like depth chart, and I figured he may start for them, whether it be at the power forward or the center spot. And so far, his minutes have slowly been increasing. He had 26 minutes last night against Minnesota, put up 15 points, 3 assists, 1 steal, and then ended up with 34 fantasy points. So if he can sort of keep this production, he shot the ball really well from deep so far. He's 7 for 11 to start the season off. If he can keep shooting like this, he'll definitely earn himself some more playing time. And I mean, we all know the Thunder, they already have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey sitting out tonight for like pretty much no fucking reason. I guarantee both of those players are not actually that hurt right now. But what can you do? It's the Thunder. They're going to tank. We all knew it was going to happen. And it's going to give a lot of opportunity to guys like Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. So if you're in a very deep league, I think it is worth taking a look at him just to see what he can do with this extended like run of minutes for these next few games. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for this season's first segment of Waiver Wire must-roster players for the week. Hopefully it helps you guys out with your waiver wire pickups and stuff. I'm definitely going to have a lot more videos, like I already mentioned, coming out, whether it be, buy low players, sell high players and stuff. But just where it's so early into the season, I generally don't advise making that many trades, especially if you're in a serious league. Nobody's really trading at this point in the season, I think. So that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.